sets, each sold separately.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a very special episode of Kiss My Collectibles. I am your only co-host because the other guys aren't here this time, Jason Herndon. And on this special episode, we're going to talk to an old friend, and I'm just going to bring him in now, and you guys all know who he is. Andrew Sgambati.
You know, I was hoping you didn't change the locks because I knew exactly where to come in.
That's right. That's right. So Andrew is in the midst, or probably at the tail end, of a new documentary that he's working on that I've had the privilege of viewing most of, and we discussed maybe having Andrew to come on to talk about this and promote this a little bit and talk about how it all came about. It's something he's been working on for a long, long time now. So we'll just jump right into it. Again, a very different episode than we usually do, but Andrew's new documentary is called From Tokyo to You, and it basically walks through the history of, the Budokan shows in '77, the HBO specials, all the way up through the Lost Alive 2, and lots of other great stuff with lots of contributors and interviews and stuff. So let's talk about it, man. Let's talk about what you've been doing.
It's so cool to be back on this show. So thank you very much for having me back. This is always something that was near and dear to me. And it's cool that we've gone our separate ways over the years, and then, we kind of find our way back. So it's always very cool to do that because we've both kept very busy in the KISS community. But what's cool about being on this show, and there are several shows that I'm appearing on to promote this show is a little bit different because a lot of the audience is collectors, and they know a lot of the things that we're about to talk about. They understand what the Lost Alive 2 is. They understand, maybe what the KISS carton is. So it's cool that this audience is going to kind of know. They're very like-minded to us as far as collectors go. But this is something totally different than I've done before. This isn't editing together old KISS clips. This isn't, taking stuff that KISS didn't use and repurposing it. This is nothing like this. This is original content, and I did 27 interviews to create this thing. So it's been something. It's been in the works. I guess I had the original idea for it back last November, and then I really started production on this in February of this year. So it's basically has consumed my whole life since February of this year. But here we are.
Right.
And you're right. We are at the tail end of this finally.
That's right. So I got to view it a couple of weeks ago, and then before we jumped on, before we started recording, hit record tonight, you let me watch a little bit more of from where we left off last time, and there's just a little bit more to finish up. But so let's do a little name dropping first. What are some highlights of some of the people that you have, in the?
Well, I think what's important is, you don't want people in there that are just a name or just popular in the circle. Because initially, when I had the idea to do this, I only had two names that I wanted to interview. I wanted to interview Elise Krenzel, who was the journalist that traveled with KISS over to Japan. She also wrote a great book, which she goes over her history of traveling to KISS in Japan, as well as her history in journalism in the 70s. I want to interview her. I want to interview Lydia Chris, because I figured those two voices were there in '77, so they would probably be able to give the most color to anyone.
Sure.
But once I interviewed, Elise was the very first interview I did for this documentary, and I interviewed her back in February. I think so. Anyway, February or March, and then in doing research for this, I started realizing how far this show reached to people. John Humphrey is in the documentary, and he was one of the best interviews because KISS Live in Japan on HBO was his entrance into being a KISS fan.
Right.
So to have him talk about how he became a KISS fan was awesome, and that this was his entrance into that. He's also, a professional in the music industry, so he kind of understands a little bit about, how they recorded the live record. He's also a collector, so he was able to speak to that as well too. He was able to add so much. John Five is in this documentary. Chris Lent, who was the tour accountant in the documentary. Eddie Trunk, Richie Randall from Stars, who works into the story a little bit later on, Bill Baker from the Kiss tribute band Fractured Mirror, or the Ace band Fractured Mirror,
Right.
Billy May from the tribute band Kiss Nation, who was a collector in the 80s and the 90s. The list goes on and on and on and on and on.
That's right.
And I also interviewed two women that were actually at the Budokan in 1977, and they talk about their memories of seeing Kiss in 77. So this story has always been near and dear to my heart because Rock and Roll Over is my absolute favorite record. I think it's a lot of Kiss fans' favorite record. And I thought they've never sounded better on that tour. So to do something to really dig deep into this, it was a no-brainer. And it was something that was so fun as a fan to do.
That's right. So let's kind of, I kind of gave a brief overview of what this documentary is kind of about, but let's kind of, dig a little bit deeper and talk about your thought process when you came up with the concept of this back last November. What were you thinking? What you wanted to portray and the people and show the people?
It's so weird because, and you could talk to a lot of creatives who make stuff like this, or even write books or plays or songs where you kind of have the idea in your head and then you write the idea down, and then if you're lucky enough, you make that idea. So essentially you're making your idea 3 different times. You got your thought, this is what it's going to be, then you write it down, and then once you start making it, you realize it takes on this other animal because now it's a real thing. So my initial thought behind this was I just wanted to talk about these Budokan shows because the Lost Alive 2, which we'll talk about a little bit later, was one of my favorite things to listen to. So I was like, well, let's talk about this. But then I realized, I was like, well, if I'm talking about a bootleg, how long am I going to make this? It's going to be like a little 5-minute video. How interesting is that going to be? Well, what if we told the whole story of Kiss in Japan? So that's when I started reaching out to other people and this and that, and trying to tell that story of how Kiss in Japan made these great shows, because that Budokan show, it was probably the first Kiss concert a lot of people saw around the world.
Right.
So I had this idea in my head. I'm writing it down. I'm working on this. And then I go to the Kiss Monster Mini Golf. And, I'm kind of down on myself, like I am on every project that I do, where I'm like, man, this sucks. This is not good. And anyone that's been to the Kiss Mini Golf, there's the mini golf course, there's Gene's Museum, and there's a little merch stand. And in the merch stand, they were selling Kiss-3, and Kiss-3 was open up to the Japan 77 page. So I come in and I see that, and I was like, man, this is karma. This is telling me that I have to do this. So once I committed that I was going to do it and that I was going to make it as good as I possibly could, so many things started happening. I was given access to original stage blueprints to the Love Gun stage that was first used on this tour. You'll see that in this documentary for the very first time. They've never been seen anywhere before, not even in history. I also talked to Lydia Chris. She was one of the best interviews that I did. It was only over the phone, but still her stories and her color to this time of Kiss's life was great. Her home movies are in here for the very first time. They came from her with her explicit permission. So you'll get to see those for the very first time ever. You've never seen these before.
That's right.
And just so many things started happening. And I did a ton of research. I bought a ton of articles. I found a ton of newspaper articles. I found a ton of magazines. And all this stuff kind of tells this story of how this band got to Japan. So I kind of look at the documentary in 3 different parts. We tell a brief history of Kiss up front, the first album coming out in Japan being Dressed to Kill. So we kind of start there. Then we tell the story in Japan. And then many fans may not know there is such a great story on how this album was recorded, how it was shelved, and how it ended up coming to fans.
That's right.
And once I started talking to all these different fans as to how they discovered this record, I was like, man, this has to be in here. So Kiss conventions are a huge part of that. If you weren't in the 90s and you didn't go to these Kiss conventions, you missed out. You really, really did. I know you did. You never went to the New York ones.
No, I didn't go to the New York ones, but I started going to the Kiss conventions that Phil Elliott was putting on.
Oh, Creatures of the South, yeah.
All the Creatures of the South stuff. So 90, I think we're talking 92. Might have been the first one. 93 for sure. I was there. 94, 95, 96. There was 5 or 6 of them that I went to there. You know, I know there was Vinny and Ace and
Yeah. And Phil was one of those early guys where he was one of those promoters that got it. And what I mean by that is his conventions were an event. Yes, there was Kiss stuff there. Yes, there were, you know, guests there, but something about the right person putting these events on, they made it an event. You know, guys like Keith LaRue and Steve Stierwald, Richie Rano, Phil Elliott, those guys, they got it. But the very first couple that did it was they were a married couple, Karen and I can't remember, but the Linskys. And they did the very first Kiss convention in Boston, Massachusetts, in March 1st, 1987. That was the very first Kiss convention. I know that because there's footage of that in this documentary.
Yeah, that's great.
Seen for the very first time ever. I don't even think it was there when you saw the cut of the film. I think I had other footage.
It was.
It was there?
There was some footage. There was some footage from the early ones. Maybe it was the New York ones that there's footage of.
Yeah. Bill Baker was very, very gracious. He gave us footage of the Kiss convention from '93, the Kiss convention in New Jersey from '89, but there's actual convention footage from the first Kiss convention, 1987.
That's
so
great.
It may not seem like a big deal, but if you're, you know, a rabid fan, you're a rabid collector, and I know there are so many people that are that watch this show and that are a member of the page in the group, that maybe they'll get off on seeing that this is how it started. It was just one room, no guests, no bands, just a bunch of dealers and people talking about Kiss.
I'm pretty sure that footage was in there. It was like a little almost like a little hallway with
well, it might have been. So here's what Jason's talking about here is he saw a cut about a week ago, or maybe even 2 weeks ago at this point.
It's been a couple weeks. Yeah.
Every day things have been happening on the movie as far as finishing it, because now that I was able to kind of get the story, you know, there, now you're going in and you're adding titles and you're doing all this other stuff. So, and I think I had just placeholder footage. I honestly think it might have been Providence '93 might have been the one that was there.
It might have been. And it's interesting, you know, I didn't go, I was still young then, you know, in certainly in the late 80s, 87, 88, 89, I was only 12, 13 years old. So I didn't start going until I was about 15 or so to the ones in the early 90s. But and they were in Atlanta, so they were, you know, fairly close to me. But I did have a connection, and I don't hate to, but I have to say Danny Dabbs went he didn't go to the Boston one, but he certainly went to the Providence, Rhode Island ones, and he went to two. Were there only 2 New York ones? How many New York ones were there?
Oh, there were every year. I mean, I think at the end of the day, there was 27.
Oh, there was that many of them. Okay.
I think so.
Well, I guess I'm just thinking like, you know, the late 80s and the early 90s. I'm only thinking about that period because
I mean, they started out at like the Meadowlands Hilton, and then there was the very first one was in Cranberry, New Jersey, in '87, and then they were at the Meadowlands Hilton. And then I think it was '91 or '92. Maybe it was actually '93. They moved to the Rothman Center in Hackensack. That's that big gymnasium that you see in the Kiss My Ass video. That's Rothman.
Right.
Yeah, it's Rothman Center.
I have some of Danny's photos in a thing here from some of those conventions where he would snap photos of the booths and stuff like that. But
which is cool too. Look, like even doing this, even, you know, the documentary is called From Tokyo to You, but in my opinion, talking about those conventions was just as important as talking about Tokyo, because if it wasn't for those conventions, you wouldn't have had access to recordings and other fans at this point.
That's right.
You know, there was no internet, there was no YouTube, and the only way to get video is either you knew someone or you went to the conventions.
Well, and then there was also, you know, there was the mail order catalog.
Gold Mine and stuff like that.
Well, there was Gold Mine, but there was also, you know, Peter Arquette. He sold.
But I think this even predates him.
It does predate him.
I think it does.
But I think probably the first Peter Arquette catalog I got with bootlegs was probably '88, maybe. It was a long time ago. He was one of the first ones that I remember doing it, and I probably still have some of those somewhere. But yeah, you know, I didn't have a lot of money. Danny would order videos, and then I would go to his house with a extra VCR, and I would copy off his videos. So
same thing.
Oh, it was the greatest. It was just the greatest time. You know, we'd spend the whole weekend doing it. You know.
Yeah, and just getting excited about being the main, I guess the main goal behind this was to get excited about being a Kiss fan again.
Yeah.
And, perhaps maybe there was a film that was done a couple of years ago called Kiss Loves You, which kind of painted the Expos and Kiss fans maybe not in the best light.
Right.
So and certainly there's not a ton on the Expos in this movie. I mean, the movie is 90 minutes and it's probably the last like 10 or 12 minutes we get into like the Expos.
But it's very relevant to the story.
Yeah. So, but it is absolutely relevant to the story because if it wasn't for those Expos, this wouldn't have come in. So I don't want to tell the whole story about how they got there because we want to save that for the movie because there were some moments where, even when I was researching, it was like, wow, that really happened. And, at this time, only 5 people have seen the movie. And everyone has had a different reaction as far as to a certain part going, oh my God, I can't believe that. Or, oh my God, I can't believe this. Or I can't believe, so it's interesting to see what parts people gravitate to. But it was very fulfilling as an artist to be able to tell these stories and then have other super fans that are super fan like me go, I didn't know that, or I forgot about that, or I didn't realize that. So that was cool for me to see that.
Yeah. And so I'll have to say, just to the viewing audience here and the people that watch this show, and I know we don't do shows often anymore, but to the people that watch this show, I told Andrew when Julian and I viewed it together, Julian Gill and I viewed it together, and just to kind of give Andrew some feedback and stuff. And what I said to Andrew was, it's the best documentary I think I've ever seen on the band.
Well, thank you. He's not there, though. Your check's in the mail.
That's right. And but it's probably because it speaks more to the side of the band, the collecting side of the band, and that's obviously that's my interest. That's why this podcast exists.
Yeah.
So it really, really speaks to me. Those early bootlegs and seeing the HBO special for the first time, and then finally seeing the uncut versions of those shows, and then getting into the Lost Alive 2 recording, and all of that stuff. It's really, really fantastic. The interviews are fantastic.
It's funny to me because I didn't realize how far and wide that show actually went.
Sure.
And talking to other fans in other countries was incredible. It added so much more validity to the film because people take for granted that you could just type whatever you want in YouTube and see it, but it wasn't like that back then. I used to go to a store who actually they were involved in the very first Kiss convention, the Rainbow Rockatorium, which was in Brick, New Jersey, where a town over from me. But that was the only place I could go to get Kiss videos. So if they didn't have it, I had no idea about it. And I'm talking like this was the late 90s when I got into collecting. So if we just imagine like just 5 or 6 years prior to that, there was no Kiss stores to go to get videos. Like I wasn't able to, buy Kissology Volume 1, or I wasn't able to go on some Japanese website and buy it. You couldn't do that back then. So you had to, there was an innocence to it at that point. And what was also cool is a lot of those little nuggets that you saw like in the late 80s and early 90s on the official Kiss videos, or even official TV shows. Some of them was from Japan. Like, you'll watch Alison Steele on the Nightbird and she's showing a clip of Japan, or, you're going to watch Friday Night Videos and Rock and Roll Night from Japan is on there. You might see stuff like that.
Right.
And to understand that this was basically our first look at this band live, that's kind of what made me decide that this needed to get a good documentary on it, whether it be by me or somebody else. So, I hope I've done it justice. I really, really do. But this speaks to the collector, and this speaks to
this
audience.
That's why I love it so much, because it speaks so much to the collector, and the fact that I lived through all of that, just like everybody that's in the video. I lived through all of that. I remember very well, seeing the HBO special and for the first time and just freaking out, and of course it was all networking back then, like you said, there were no stores, there was no YouTube, there was none of that stuff. So if you didn't have connection to Peter Arquette or the very few guys that sold the bootleg videos back then, you had to know somebody that knew somebody to get a 20th generation copy of the HBO special or whatever it was, and that's how we watched that stuff, and it was freaking fantastic back then. So.
What was interesting too is once I started collecting, the full show was already out there.
Right.
So I took for granted that I was always able to get the full show. So, but then you had people that were selling all these compilations, and so I always was aware that it was the Young Music Show, which I didn't know that it's slightly different between the Young Music Show and HBO.
Right.
I didn't realize that, but I never got that version because I'm like, this is the same thing. Like, this is just an edited version of this show. I didn't realize that Young Music Show and HBO was both 3 p.m. and the 7 p.m. shows, because people that don't know, on April 2nd, 77, Kiss played 2 shows at the Budokan. Both of those shows were recorded. So
what aired was a combination
of both of those shows. So, for the bootleg collectors, initially we had a bootleg called Takes Tokyo. And Takes Tokyo was April 1st, which, again, I didn't know that. I came into a time in collecting where there was so much available that you could cherry pick and pick the best stuff. So once I had this complete show with a Lost Alive 2, why was I going to go and get something that sounded possibly worse? Why was I going to do that?
Sure.
So I ignored stuff like Takes Tokyo or whatever for a while because it just, like, I didn't need it. But at the time, Takes Tokyo is what you had. Here, I'm going to show something cool.
Yeah.
3 weeks ago, I had all this stuff just spread out all over in my studio, and now as I'm like finishing stuff, I'm able to put stuff away where it goes. But all this stuff is out. So there's this collection that came out a couple of years ago, a CD collection called the Kiss Carton. But what it shows in here is it shows some of these original bootlegs. That's right. And it comes with, and these original bootlegs, they were just like photocopies stuck in plastic vinyl sleeves. So this is the Take Tokyo,
right?
London, Sneak Attack, which was Los Angeles Forum 77. Kiss My Axe. I'm not sure what this one was off the top of my head. But then we have all these other shows. We have Part 2 of Anaheim,
right?
Part 1 of Anaheim, which was my first bootleg, was this actual cover. And it was just yellow Xerox paper.
And those are the classic. That's the classic vinyl. Release.
And then Fried Alive,
legendary.
Yeah. So I think without these bootlegs and without people collecting, some of this stuff wouldn't have happened. So again, not to sound hammer this point home, but collecting was just as important as Kiss going to Japan, because without these collectors, we wouldn't have had a lot of this great stuff. And it was just so innocent back then. That's really what I wanted to illustrate, was how innocent, it was back then. But what was most interesting to me is some fans and some people knew that Kiss was recording at the Budokan, but other people didn't know.
Right.
And like I said, by the time I started collecting, this had already been out there. So when it was the early to mid 90s when this actually leaked out, people were freaking out over this, because it was something that we never knew about, and if you knew about it, you never thought you were going to hear it. So what do you like? I kind of go back to our Kiss My Boots days. We were talking about bootlegs. We never got to this show, unfortunately.
No, we didn't. No.
But I always used to ask you, what do you remember about the bootlegs? Do you remember when you got this for the first time?
What are we talking about as far as what I got?
The Lost Alive 2. Do you remember what got you guys for the first time?
I was listening to the last bit that we were watching before that, and I heard John Humphreys say that he remembered getting it around the Napster days. I don't have an exact recollection, and when you asked me to participate in recording, this is why I didn't. This is why I declined, because I didn't think that I could add much to the storyline, because I don't have a definitive memory of getting that for the first time. But I feel like it was before Napster would be 99. I feel like it was before that, maybe right before that.
Yeah. this is bizarre because I remember when I got this. It was at the Kiss convention in 1999. And I wish I would have kept this. I always kick myself for getting rid of these original things, but it came on one of those black PlayStation CDs.
Oh,
And I remember when I got it, I was like, I got ripped off. But then obviously they played. So, but what was interesting when I first got it, I just thought it was just someone took the Budokan, audio from the video and just put it on a CD and then they called it that. But there are differences. There are absolute differences
for sure.
from it. But there was also so much damage to it. And I remember for years and years and years, we were like, well, this is just a damaged recording.
That's
we
right.
We find out later that it was just oxidation damage. And I couldn't even tell you where it originated.
Yeah, I don't think anybody knows. We've had those discussions many times. How did that happen? And for people that don't, that may not know in depth what we're talking about, there are several places, specifically in I Want You, but at several places in that Lost Alive 2, where you just have this screeching kind of hissing noise that plays over the music, or along with the music, and it makes it tough to listen to. I remember listening through to it the first time, and then when I would go back, I would usually skip I Want You because it was tough to listen to.
There's almost half the tracks have damage on
right.
them. I Want You is probably the worst one.
It's the worst. That's why I always remember it. Specifically, it's really the worst. And
I Want You is the worst one.
But
right. even that, I made sure to go over that in the documentary too, because I think that's important to talk about that too, because maybe some fans aren't aware of that. Now, some other fans have, tried to use AI and to try and get rid of it. But at this present moment, the actual untouched clean recording doesn't circulate in fan circles. So, which, maybe there's an answer to that in the film. I don't know. We can't. The weird thing about doing something like this is, when I would talk about The Greatest Show on Earth or Kiss at Midnight, most of that stuff you'd already seen. The story. You've seen Cobo Hall 76 or you've seen Largo 77. You've seen all that stuff. But what was different about this is an original story with original content and original interviews that were all done by me between February and now. So there are things in there that there are moments where you go, well, I didn't know that. So I don't want to spoil.
Yeah, we don't want to give the whole.
I don't want to spoil everything because there are a couple of moments where you're like, I didn't know that, or I didn't know this. I think I was actually talking to a friend of mine about this today, and he hasn't seen the film, but he knows about it. Because I was like, oh, what if I did this, or what if I did this? I've been asking him questions, and he's also another fan. Billy May, he's actually in the documentary too. But I was talking to him about it today, and we're getting to a point now. Here we are, like mid-October, where I'm like, all right, well, I got to release a clip of it just to tease it out. And I was like, I think I'm going to release the Alive 2 clip, where for the very first time we put it to bed that some of Alive 2 is Tokyo.
That's excellent. Yeah, that's right. That's going to be an eye opener for a lot of people, I think, when you see that side by side. It's really, really great.
Yeah, we can talk about that a little bit now, because that was one of the things where when I did it, I was like, man, is it going to match up? So we've determined, over all the scientists in the KISS lab have determined that that I Want You and Beth from Alive 2 is Tokyo.
That's right.
The audience might be changed a little, but it absolutely is Tokyo. So what I did is I was able to sync them together, and Alive 2 plays in the right channel, Tokyo plays in the left channel, and they are perfectly in sync. Identical. Yeah. Identical. And you'll see that in the movie.
It was fascinating when Julian and I were watching it with Andrew. It was absolutely fascinating. My jaw was on the floor. So yeah, it's great.
So there are moments like that in the movie. You're like, man, I didn't know that, or I'd only heard about that, or there were only rumors about that. So
no, we thought that's forum shows and rehearsals, with sound checks and all of that stuff for Alive 2, and here it is. This absolutely from Japan.
I was given a folder of documents of Eddie Kramer's that he used for this, and there's one in the movie too where it has a list, and it has all the songs that were going to be on Alive 2. Then it has two columns. It says L.A. and Japan.
Yep.
And he was kind of going through and seeing which were going to come from which. So that kind of lets you know that some of it was borrowed from Japan.
That's
and
right.
rightfully so, because think about how much money they would have spent to record that and mix it and do what they had to do on that just to not release it.
Right. Yeah, it only makes sense to do something with it, right?
Something with it. And I think there were rumors for a while that the I Want You version that was said to be a sound check on the box set was actually from this. That's actually the only thing that I didn't compare to this. I mean, some people have dissected that and said there are some guitar glitches that are in both, and it's just Alive 2 without the audience in there. So it's one of those things that's a little bit weird. So who knows? But unquestionably, I Want You on Alive 2 is unquestionably Japan.
That's right.
Unquestionably Japan. So, but this film is going to take you. It starts in 1975 when the first Kiss album came out in Japan. Goes all the way up to Japan. There are so many great stories told by Lydia, by Barry Acom, who was Paul and Ace's guitar tech. He was there at that time. And Chris Lund, they talk about the troubles in Japan and what happened at customs and what happened. There's actually audio footage from the Japanese press conference that I don't think has ever been heard before. That's in the movie. And then all kinds of footage of the Budokan and being able to see inside the Budokan, and Paul's translation sheet that says if you want to say this is what you say in Japanese.
That's great. That's great too.
So that was an actual document that was given to the band. And you'll be able to see that in the documentary too. So it's not just interview. There's so much cool stuff in here that hopefully it satisfies even the most rabid of Kiss fans.
Yeah, I agree. It's there's something for everybody there. It's fascinating if you don't know anything about it, but there is absolutely something for people like Andrew and I who eat, sleep, and breathe this stuff. Andrew more than I eat, but there's a lot of great nuggets in there, and that's why I'm so excited about it and gave it such high praise because you're
excited about it. So we should probably talk about when it comes out because we're so excited about this. I mean, how can people see this?
Don't ask me that. Where can people see this, Andrew, and when can people see this?
So if you want to be able to see this will be out on YouTube for everyone to see on Tuesday, November 11th. 11/11, you'll get your chance to see From Tokyo to You on YouTube. It'll also be on my website. The coolest thing is I'm going to relaunch a brand new version of my website, which is andrewsgambati.com on 11/11. Oh, we'll talk about this too. Yeah, hold on. We'll get to that. We'll get to that. I'm going to launch a brand new version of my website on 11/11. And what's so cool about the new version of the website is it's going to be truly interactive media once again. How cool was it back in the day to get a DVD and see bonus footage and outtakes and commentary? So you're going to be able to see all of that on the website. There's going to be deleted footage, pictures you've never seen, documents you've never seen. And for the two of you that want to hear director's commentary, that'll be there as well too. But the website will be truly interactive, and you'll not only get to see the movie on the website, but you'll get to see all kinds of stuff about the making of the movie. But if you're a super rabid fan and you happen to be in the state of New Jersey, the world premiere of From Tokyo to You will be Saturday, November the 8th at Smod Castle Cinemas in the Atlantic Highlands, New Jersey. I believe this is going to air before that, so you'll get to go and see that. Now, here, the one thing is the event is sold out at this point in time. It is absolutely free. It is a private screening, so you can't just show up on the street and walk in. Every seat has been taken on there, but go to my Facebook, go to my website. A seat or two may open up before that, but as it stands right now, it is sold. It's been sold for a couple of weeks at this point, which is just amazing. Just to know that there are going to be people from the cast, the crew, and fans and friends and family that are going to be there. It's going to be something so awesome to see this movie on the big screen in my home state at a theater that's owned by one of my childhood heroes, Kevin Smith. So The other cool thing too, because we're Kiss fans, we love stuff. If you do go to that screening on November the 8th, you will get one of these posters absolutely free. It is an original piece of artwork done by a Japanese Kiss fan. I commissioned this from him a couple of years ago, and I thought that this would be a great time to share this. So this is the world premiere on November the 8th from Tokyo. So if you go to that, you'll get one of these.
Awesome.
And if you want me to write on it and ruin it, I'll do that for you. But I would prefer not to. I'd prefer that you frame it like this. Nobody cares about me. They care about
this. Right on the back of it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they'll be numbered on the back.
Yeah.
But so this is something that's so cool, and I'm so excited that not only is it going to come out on YouTube on November 11th, but to be able to be in a room and watch it with a bunch of diehard Kiss fans and fans that were original fans from the convention days.
Yeah.
So a lot of the people that are in the movie are going to be there. Really, really close friends of mine are going to be there, and they'll get to see this, basically for the first time. Yeah. Obviously there have been people like you, Jason, and Julian have seen it. So, but they'll get to see it in its complete form for the first time, and I'll be excited to hear what they have to say about it. Hopefully they like it.
Oh, I'm sure they will. I'm sure they will. It's really well done, man.
I really appreciate that, and your check is in the mail for saying that. But
I
again,
hope so. I have some bills to pay. So
yeah, but again, it's one of those things where I do this, and I'm always like, man, is it gonna be good? Because I can't tell. I'm one of those Kiss fans that loves the minutia, that loved the recent Cadillac video that came out, that really got off on some of the stuff that Ken Nardi does, or got off on some of the stuff that Necra does, or Mickey G. Those fans that are creating their own interpretations of Kiss, that stuff that I like. But I'm a super fan. Sometimes I'm not the best one to tell for like the casual audience.
Sure.
But I'm hoping that something like this really breaks through, and someone takes notice. We'll see.
Absolutely. So
we'll see.
One more time.
Yeah.
When, where? November
11th. So if you all around the world, you'll be able to see this on November 11th. Just remember 11/11.
Mm-hmm.
You'll be able to see this. Now, I always, here's the thing. I'm a huge movie fan. And if there's a movie that I love, what do? You go to the Thursday night screens. They used to be midnight showings, but apparently midnight showings now are like at 8 o'clock the night before, because I guess there were too many teenagers working at movie theaters and they couldn't work overnight. Anyway, so probably 10 o'clock or 8 o'clock p.m. on November 10th. That will probably be when I go on YouTube, but you'll be able to log on at 12:01 on 11/11, and you'll be able to see this on YouTube, and you'll be able to see all the bonus features on AndrewSgambati.com. And if you're one of the lucky ones that was able to snag a seat, and I was able to confirm it with you, the world premiere is going to be November 8th, Saturday, November 8th at Smod Castle Cinemas in the Atlantic Highlands, New Jersey. And you'll get one of these cool posters, and sign it with a mushroom stamp if you want, but I won't do that. But you'll get to see one of these, and hopefully people dig it. Hopefully, this elevates Kiss fan works into something totally different, because as Kiss fans, we are just clamoring for content.
Yeah, that's the word.
We really, really are. We're talking here today. It's October 14th, and if you're a Kiss fan, if you've seen Kiss's socials, there's an announcement coming October 16th for your Kiss Army VIP members. And obviously, even if you're Kiss Army VIP, everybody's going to know what it is on the 16th. So Jason and I were speculating what it was going to be before we got on here. He thinks it's a Music from the Elder box set, and I'm like, no, it's the unreleased version of Burn Bitch Burn. That's what it's got to be. So, but
it's the nothing can keep me from you.
Oh, nothing keep me from vomiting.
That's right.
I just, man.
All right.
But no, this is something by a fan for a fan, and I really, really hope that people dig it. I really do. And if you don't, that's cool too. I still got your view.
Which fan?
The metal one.
Oh, gotcha. The metal one. All right.
The metal.
Well, seriously, I can't wait to see it in its final form. I still haven't seen the whole thing. Still missing the last 10 minutes. So, but congratulations, man. It's well done, and I hope it does well for you.
Yeah. So let's take a look at that clip right now.
there's no secret that some of the tracks recorded on these shows at Budokan were eventually used on Alive 2, specifically Beth and I Want You.
You can run, you can hide, but you never get away. You can lie and deny, but you know you're gonna pay. You can run, you can hide, but you never get away. You can lie and deny, you know you're gonna pay. You can run, you can hide, but you never get away. You can lie and deny, you know you're gonna pay.
That was your first clip of From Tokyo to You, and you can see it everywhere on November 11th. 11/11. I made it easy.
That's right. All right, Andrew. Congratulations again, and thank you for coming on. And
Oh,
talking.
thanks for having me. You know, it was great that the locks were still the same after all these years.
That's right. Yeah, the virtual locks are you know.
This is not virtual. Like you're just in the next room.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
You know what's so funny is over the years that we've done this show together and done things together. I mean, you moved once, but you've basically been in the same place almost the whole time for a lot of these.
7.5 years in this place.
Yeah,
And we started a show. Actually, this year is the 10th anniversary of Kiss My Wax.
is it?
Yes, sir.
And we didn't do anything to celebrate.
No, it's December.
We got to do something to celebrate. So
December.
that's the next anniversry. There was
the
you heard it here first, folks. But at I remember doing it at one of my old houses, and then now I got this. I'm here in my studio, but it's the background for me always changes. Maybe not so much for Jason.
Right. Yeah. No, I started the Kiss My Wax group in November of 2015, and then you suggested that we do a podcast, and we the first one I can go back and look, but it's like the first or second week of December when the first episode aired.
Wow. So we got to do a 10th anniversary show.
Yeah. So you had just turned 30.
Oh yeah, right. Because I'm 40 now.
And I was just turning 40. I turned 50 in December.
Wow. Where'd the time go, man?
Unbelievable.
Where'd the time go?
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
Well, you heard it here first, folks. We're gonna have a 10th anniversary show.
Yeah, we did one for the 5th. Yeah, the 5th anniversary. So we'll do the 10th.
I remember that. My favorite memory of that was I don't even know how this happened or why this happened, but the SMC or the high quality CD version of Double Platinum had just come out from Japan, and it recreated all the what's it called?
SHM.
SHM, right. And it recreated all of the inserts that were in the original Double Platinum.
That's right.
And so I was comparing them both. So I had my original Double Platinum insert, and you had the little one. So I remember I passed what looked like giant to me. I passed it to you in the screen, and then you
about
in the screen the little one. I'll never forget that. That was the way that lined up was so funny because we both had the same order.
I forgot all about that.
Yeah, it was funny. It's
All
funny.
right, yeah, we'll do something on the 10th anniversary for sure.
There you go.
Maybe it'll be the end of the show.
There you go.
Put this dead horse. Finally bury it or something.
Well, I mean, here's the thing, and I know this from talking with fans, Kiss fans that were fans of the show. People are still discovering old episodes, and people are still like, man, they talked about this on this episode, so people still get into the show, and I still look at some of the comments, or when I shared an episode, and I go back and look at it. People are still, digging what we did for collecting.
I'm still approving comments on those.
Yeah,
old
and they're still collectors. So perhaps maybe when releases really are fast tracked again, perhaps maybe there'll be a Kiss My Wax 2014 edition or something like that, or just because there's still stuff to collect out there. So who knows what the future holds?
Oh, sure.
We never know.
All right, 11/11. Go
11/11. So AndrewSgambati.com, and I hope you all enjoy it. I really do. And if you don't, tell me.
It sucks.
Yeah.
Oh.
Hey,
Right.
it might. It might.
And
Thanks so much for having me, and thanks everybody for watching. I really appreciate it.
sounds good. All right, guys. We'll see you on the next one.
I was waiting for that.
This is kits, each sold separately.